Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at the DC Collectibles DC Films Superman figure, which you guys may or may not be aware, there haven't been too many good Superman figures from BVS or even Man of Steel. We've been lacking severely in that department. So this figure aims to rectify that. It's supposed to be a domestic-made, import-style figure. You can see it's a little bit bigger, and of course we'll get into the measurements and all the details later, but it's loaded with articulation, it's loaded with sculpt work, it's loaded with some paint work, and it's got some interchangeable parts. So it's basically a domestic import. So we need to see, is this the best Superman from these movies that we could be getting? It might be, it might not. We're gonna have to look at that. So let's get it off the stand and take a closer look. This guy stands just about 18 centimeters, which makes him just about 7 inches. He's just shy of 7 inches, which is interesting because it's marketed as a 6-inch figure. So he's definitely a little bit too big for Marvel Legends and a little bit too small for your average 7-inch figure. So it's worth noting. There's a bit of a discrepancy in the size. If that doesn't bother you, like it doesn't bother me, that's completely fine, but you should be aware. So like I said, he's got a lot of accessories, or at least more than your average domestic figure, so let's talk about those first. We have 2 interchangeable heads, one standard head, and then one head with heat vision. You have to insert the heat vision yourself, and it's extremely fragile and doesn't look very good. So I think, personally, that is a waste of an accessory. I think they could have done a whole lot better with just an angry face with painted on heat vision. That would have been way better. Especially since the heat vision head doesn't have any expression at all. It's pretty disappointing if you ask me. We do have 6 hands total. We have the 2 fist hands, we have 2 relaxed hands, and then 2 kind of tensed open hands. Then lastly, we have a display stand, which is reminiscent of an import display stand. Has a spring clip at the top, and some various odd peg holes in the bottom. I don't know why they're all over the place in different ways, but they are there so you can move the peg around if you want to. So back to the figure. I want to start off the figure part of this by saying I like some of the things about this figure a whole lot. Easily the best in their category for Superman figures. Some of the things on this guy, though, are terrible. So we have to talk about all of those things because that's what we do here. The first thing is the cape. I would argue that this, short of a Hot Toys Superman, is the best cape that we've gotten on any of these movie Superman figures. It looks nice from both sides. Very nice. Obviously, the cloth is technically out of scale. There's way too much visible texture to the cloth, but you can't really do much about that, so I don't mind. I think it's okay. I like that it does have some ironed-in wrinkles. It makes it hang properly, so that's a good thing. And it does have wire going from here to here on both sides, and the wire is not super thin, so that you can actually bend it and it'll hold its shape. Those are all very good things. I think a cape like this needs to be wired. The other good thing about this is the way it inserts into the shoulders. Easily the best looking out of all of the figures we've gotten of this Superman short of Hot Toys. It looks great the way that inserts there. Here's my problem with the cape, and it's fairly large. I don't understand why they did this. The wire starts back here. So if you wanted in a flying pose, obviously that's not how it would look for flying, but if you wanted to pose it really in any way, you can't. You can only bend it from here back, so you can really only affect how it hangs. Now you can get kind of a windswept look if you're careful enough, but it's a little bit weird the way it starts back here. If they had inserted the wire so that it went all the way in, I think that would have been much better. Is that a deal breaker? Probably not, but it is something you should be aware of. Very nice cape in general, though I like it a whole lot. The paint job on this guy, -2 areas, is really good. The face, we'll talk about the face in a minute, and then the boots, it's a little weird the way we have this kind of like dirty black smudging going on. I don't know what that's supposed to look like, but it doesn't look like it. Unless it's supposed to look like a bad paint job. The boots don't look good. But the other areas of paint do look really good. The belt in particular, and all of these blue riblets, or whatever you want to call these things, going around his torso and up on his arms, those look fantastic. It's very, very clean. It's nice and metallic. It looks good up against the rest of the figure. I like it a whole lot. The chest it's pretty good. The red has that black dirtiness on it, same as the boots, which I don't understand, but otherwise it looks nice. It has the blue trim with the gold in there, and it looks pretty good. I'm okay with that. So now let's talk about the face. This is supposed to look like Henry Cavill, and it looks like John Travolta. Way more than Henry Cavill. Now I can see a bit of the sculpt looking like Henry Cavill, but most of it doesn't. And then the paint job is fairly basic, though clean. I mean, you can see the technical aspect of the paint job isn't terrible, but it just doesn't scream realism. It doesn't really match the quality of the sculpt, and it just looks a little bit odd. There's no shading in the hair. The eyebrows don't look quite right. It's a very kind of juvenile or rudimentary paint job for a figure like this, so it stands out a little bit. So that's not great. As far as the rest of the figure sculpt, it is all sculpted, so that's a good thing. You can see the chest and all that kind of stuff looks really nice. There are some problems with this, though, and I'm going to chalk this up to the fact that this is the first of the bunch. Maybe they're still working their way through a highly articulated figure like this. We know DC Collectibles isn't exactly known for that, so there's going to be a learning curve, and I understand that, and that's probably what most of this is due to. If you remember the prototype pictures, he had like a double shoulder situation. Same with Batman, they looked very weird. We don't have that anymore. Obviously, he's much better in that regard, but we do have some anatomy issues. If you look at the biceps, they're concave for the most part. I mean, you have the two different heads of the bicep normally, and I guess that's what they're trying to represent here, but it's just not working. The biceps are almost non-existent. It's very strange. Is it a deal breaker? Probably not, but you should be aware of it. The diaphragm joint here, it's a little bit weird how separated it is, and especially since it doesn't really afford the best motion. You get really good side to side, but forward and back, not very much. So I don't know. I think they need to refine that a little bit, but it's not bad. It's just not great. It does rotate around, so you can hide most of these issues while posing it, but these are things we have to bring up since this is a review. Another thing I have to bring up is the overall look of the torso is very weird, how bulbous the abdominal section is. It's just weird. You can't bring the chest forward enough to hide it. In fact, if you bring it forward, it gives him even more of a pot belly. So it's very weird how curved this section is right here. It's a little odd. Shoulders work really nicely in terms of anatomy. There's a little bit of a flat spot there, but no big deal. And then for the legs, the anatomy's not bad. We'll talk about the rest of the issues when we get to the articulation, which we're going to do now. For the head, we have a double ball peg. It moves around really well. I like it. I can't think of anything that works better. That's a good thing. The neck itself is also on a ball peg, so that helps. You can pose the head around pretty well. Not completely in a flight pose, but definitely enough. I think that's okay, especially for just a normal human. Well, Kryptonian. For the shoulders, we don't have that double shoulder issue at all. We just have this kind of cap that hides the ball peg that lets the arm move around in that area. It doesn't actually afford much range, but it doesn't hurt, and it doesn't look bad, so that's okay. Outside of that, we have your standard ball hinge, which comes out almost completely horizontally, so that's a good thing. Full rotation, of course. Bicep swivel is fully functional. Double jointed elbow, fully functional. Not too bad looking either. I think they did a pretty good job of that, so that's a good thing. And then for the wrists, we have a ball hinge. So just like your standard imports, everything's pretty basic so far, so that's a good thing. I will point out, the arms they seem to be a little bit stumpy. His arms look a little bit short, and if we can get the cape out of there, I don't know. It's not glaringly obviously short, but they do seem just a little bit undersized. Maybe that's just me. We already talked about the diaphragm joint. The waist twist is a ball peg, which works pretty well. You get a little bit of gapping, but that's only if you lean him all the way back, so that's okay. It does help out. You get a little bit of rotation, and it's just going to help you pose the figure around. You do get a little bit more. The more you pose him, though, the more his pot belly sticks out, so it's a little strange. The hips are just like your SH Figure Arts. We have a hinged ball peg, so you can bring the leg down if you want to, and then you can move it around. If you bring it straight up, it does kick it off to the side. If you go straight out, it works pretty well, but he does have decent range. I don't have any problem with that. You have your thigh swivel on top of that. It's a little bit segmented. I feel like they could have somehow made this work a little bit better, but it's not bad. It's not like it's going to stand out or anything like that. For the knees, we have a double jointed knee, which functions very well. You get the knee pretty much all the way back, but the knee itself looks like some kind of problem. I don't know what they were thinking. That is not a good knee joint. There's no reason to have this part of the knee cap over the upper or the lower part of the quads. You can even see how it's carved out there. There's no need for that. That should all just be sculpted, and the knee should just be the kneecap. If you put the patella here and all the muscles up here, it's fine, but they did that, and it's not good. It's functional, and it's not terrible, but it's not good. And then for the ankles, we have a ball hinge. It doesn't afford the best range, but it's definitely good enough, and you can kind of force it a little bit more, so that's okay. And if you rotate it around, you get your ankle rocker, so that's really good. So, you know, this figure has a lot of things that are really good on paper, and they're just not quite there on the actual figure. So, do I recommend it? I think technically I do. It's probably the best overall Superman that's not a Hot Toys so far. I like a lot of the things about this a whole lot. I do think they're going to have to refine what they're doing a little bit as they go forward. But I'm optimistic. I'm pretty pleased with the line so far. Obviously, this is just my first experience with it, but I do like it. Mostly. It's just some weird things that are nagging at me that maybe most of you won't even notice, so I wouldn't even worry about it, but I had to talk about it because that's what we're here for. So there it is, guys. These guys will be coming out very soon in the next couple of weeks. So if you want to get those pre-orders in, now's the time to do it. I believe they're all still available on Big Bad Toy Store, so get to it. So get to that if you want to get them, and if not, then you don't have to worry about it. So there it is, guys. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I have new videos up every single day. We talk about action figures, TV shows, movies, all kinds of fun stuff, so come back for that. And in the meantime, keep collecting.